Hi, I'm Noel New, the songwriting therapist. I want to talk about trust. It's kind of a charged word, but really important that we are able to trust one another, be able to be trusted and trustworthy, and to kind of have this giving and receiving of trust is really important to feeling safe, emotionally and otherwise, in this world. And so a little formula came to me years ago on what is trust. And so, especially in communication with another, so in a relationship, any type of relationship, in order to trust somebody, there's two parts that come from and through the person and then received back. So I have the formula: trust equals honesty with self. So I'm being honest with myself plus honest with you, with another. So I'm being honest with me, and then I'm sharing honestly with you what I'm thinking or doing or saying, times two. The trust equals honesty with self plus honesty with another, times two. Because if I am honest with myself and honest with you, that lays the foundation for an environment of emotional safety, where you could feel that I'm being honest with myself, and I'm sharing honestly with you. So you'll return that back to me. If you don't, then you're not trustworthy, and then that's something for me to set a boundary with you, and that's a whole nother subject called codependency. Those that were, trusting somebody who's not trustworthy, there's a whole issue behind that. But once we know, am I being honest with myself? Because that I can control. And am I being honest with you, with what I think and saying and doing? Because that I could control. Then you're open and you feel it, you're going to do the same with me. Then we trust each other. It happens in an instant. It doesn't, we can, as soon as that, we're humans, as soon as we feel that, we will intrinsically and intuitively trust each other. So that's the trust that I'm talking about between two people. Now, I'm going to go off in two parts, but first, let's keep with this trust. So I'm honest with me and I'm honest with you, and you're doing the same. Now I trust you, you trust me. It's just intrinsic. What's really important to maintain that trust is that I trust myself. Now, how do I trust myself? Well, that one we needed to kind of get a gift as a child and to be trusted as a child. If we weren't trusted as a child, which, by the way, the only reason why our parents didn't trust us is because they weren't trusted, and so forth and so on down the line. But a lot of times that's what happens, is we're not trusted. And so if I don't feel trusted as a child, I don't grow up feeling trustworthy in myself. I have to always prove it, quote unquote, or try to exclaim it, or or try to manipulate it, whatever the case may be. So what I mean by trusted as a child, this is a real important piece, because then we can actually do this with ourselves. And I have a whole meditation on this that you can hear in other channels and things like that, and how to get this sense of trust with self. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to focus on the trust. Every child needs to be trusted. Now, when you say trust a child, it's not trusting a child that they know what to do, because a child needs to be taught. So they don't intuitively know what to do. We're trusting that they know who they are, because every child born knows who they are. Every child. It's intrinsic. They know who they are. But if they don't feel trusted that they know who they are, which again, as parents, we can get confused with, they don't know what to do, so they don't know who they are, and then we don't trust any part of them, well then, now they don't have that basic foundation of trust and self-trust. So they will act accordingly. act out, act in, shut down, whatever the case may be, to overcompensate because they don't know who they are. So how do we correct this? Well, that's where we go back into ourselves and literally make the claim, I trust you. You know, literally look in the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and tell yourself, I trust you. You know, state your name. You know, and do that several times. And then the next statement is, I trust me. I trust me. So I trust you. In my case, I trust you, Noel. And then I trust me. And just, you know, practicing that until it really opens back up. Here's the good news. It's not just an affirmation. It's not just like something like you're just making it up. Hey, I trust me. Remember, when we reconnect back to that baby that was born, that baby intrinsically and intuitively trusted themselves. So all we're going to do is reach back into that. So we developed this little practice of getting back to trusting ourselves and feeling trusted by our higher self. Then we can integrate that, and as we practice being honest with self and honest with another, we trust each other. Really important process to really engage in. And I'm just going to jump to one extra piece, because now that I've talked about trust squared, if you will, you know, to keep with the mathematic processes, is intimacy. And all that is so now intimacy is trust squared. So that means it's exponential. So now, whereas the trust formula is I'm honest with myself, what I think and say and do, and I'm honest with you, what I think and say and do, times 2. Now we trust each other. Intimacy is I'm honest with myself on how I feel, plus I'm honest with you how I feel, times 2. Now we've gone trust and we've just grown it into intimacy, because now that vulnerability, and I always like to say intimacy is vulnerability shared, that vulnerability with myself of how I'm really feeling in the moment, and then being able to expose that and share that with you creates an even deeper level of trust called intimacy. And this one is critical in close relationships, you know, and it's really critical that we're able to have that level of vulnerability with self shared with another and shared back, because that is what strengthens our bond. So we have trust, we build the trust in ourselves, we are honest with ourselves and another with how we think, what we're thinking, saying, and doing, and that's returned. And then we are honest with how we're feeling and shared, and that's returned. Now these are the building blocks to freedom and fulfillment in relationships, in connection, and just being in the world in general. So always go back to what I can control is I'm honest with myself and what I'm thinking and saying and doing and how I'm feeling. That's even the next level. And I trust you, and I'm honest with you in sharing that at that level, and that level of intimacy builds.